BioSteel. No, I know this brand. No, this guy's legit type thing, right? And it was like, whoa, okay, he's not crazy type thing. And they called down, they got my name, and I came off that plane and they had the wheelchair ready, and they wheeled me out, and I'm not allowed to walk, even though I wanted. My wife's there to pick me up. And she's just like, what did you do? Like, why are these people escorting you out? So physically, that was probably the biggest toll I had to pay.
No Free Lunch is presented by T. Rowe Price. The information provided on this podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be considered financial or legal advice. Always consult with a qualified financial and or legal professionals before making any legal or financial decisions or investments. I'm Ndamukong Suh, and welcome to No Free Lunch, where we talk to experts and athletes about how the most successful people in sports manage their money and grow their wealth. Today, we're talking about something that can make or break an athlete's image: endorsements. Connections with brands can be lucrative on both sides if they're set up the right way. The most important factor, authenticity. The fit has to feel right for both the athlete and the brand. I know this from experience, and so does today's guest. John Celenza, the CEO and founder of Cizzle Brands, they make hydration and nutrition products geared towards pro athletes. The company's only about a year old, and they've already got a handful of influential partners, including NHL MVP Nathan MacKinnon. So today, we're gonna find out how they sealed those deals and what's so special about the product, including their strategy to serve athletes. Let's get into it right here on No Free Lunch. So John, welcome to the show. Appreciate you joining us. And I got to do a disclaimer for all the audience and fans. I am a part of the board of Quench. So just wanted to let everybody know that. Obviously a great brand that I am in support of and obviously helping lead from that perspective. But most importantly, John, let's jump into what Cizzle and Quench are as a collective and really your history in the particular space of consumer brand products.
Yeah, for sure. So Cizzle Brands, house of brand approach, bringing the world better for you products. That ranges from drinks to protein supplements to greens products. In the hopper, we have a sport pasta and some snacks. And our niche is being best in class at the end of the day. So Quench is our flagship product, sports drink here, no sugar, Tetra packaging, best electrolyte drink on the market. We sell it to pro athletes, professional teams and organizations, even though they get all the other stuff for free. They're paying for ours. Yeah, no, it
definitely was exciting. And I was actually blown away from when I had my first trial of Quench. My wife brought it home and I'm like, what in the world what is this? What are you bringing back home from the gym? And then it happened to work out perfectly. My naturopath was at our house taking care of us, and he's like, man, this is amazing. All the products that are in this and really how streamlined it was. So was excited to do that. But I want to circle back before we get into details of Quench and why you created it. Where did this all start? And if I'm not mistaken, BioSteel was the first company that you founded and created and had success within this consumer products industry.
That's right. So 2009, a childhood friend and I started BioSteel. He was a professional athlete, wanted to have a supplement company. I was of a sports marketing background. So to take you back a little bit further, as a kid, I was kind of the guy in school, not fully paying attention, always drawing the Nike swoosh on his binder. Yeah. Right. And my buddy who I started that company with, he was, one of the best hockey players in the world as a kid. So that gave me great exposure to professional sports all the way to when he went up into the pro ranks. And then from there, I interned at the NHLPA in the marketing department. So I got to learn group licensing and media rights and all that cool stuff. And then from there, I worked at an advertising firm where they did some consumer packaged goods, some pizza chains as well, some real estate advertising. So I really got to round out, my breadth of work from that. And then BioSteel was just kind of game on. He put in a $50,000 loan. Away we went. I was the main operator, literally out of the back of my dad's used car dealership. The warehouse was the shower. Because we were worried there was going to be a flood. So, if it leaked or anything, it was there. We'd close the curtain at the end of the night type thing. So that was pretty much learned by fire, Ndamukong, and what we did there, and kind of what our team's doing today with Quench is we validate these products with the best in the world, right? Mm-hmm. That's our niche. So let's take you as an example, right? Athlete at the highest level, right? Product makes its way into your house. Hey, hold on here. What's this? Right? And you just so happen to have a nutritionist over. That's what you said as well.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So, when you look at Prime or even Gatorade, all these other drinks, it's just all marketing right now. And eventually mom and dad or, someone astute is going to catch on that this isn't actually good for you, right? But we know if we can check out with the best in the world, with the best athletes in the world, the best doctors, the best nutritionists, that word's going to spread, and it's going to spread the right way. So that's what we did with BioSteel. We sold more to pro teams than we did to mainstream retail. Mainstream retail, I was still learning very much. And the relationships that came from forming that company and that brand is just, the stories I could tell are just wild. Like that whole Cowboys documentary that's going on. I got a first row seat to that. I remember one night, I'll give you a cool story. We endorsed Des Bryant.
Okay.
So we got Des. And
Wild Des. And
this is
we came out together in the league, so I know him very well.
This is peak Des. Okay.
Yeah.
And we were doing some stuff in Texas, and I'm looking up online. I'm like, how does Des Bryant not have an endorsement deal, right?
Yeah.
So we do up the deal. Rocky Arsenal's agency is representing him at the time. The shoot's supposed to be an hour. Des is there for like 4 hours, right? Just playing basketball, hanging out with everybody. Great guy. And then the whole thing happens with Jerry and Jay-Z, because he's leaving. He's going to Rock Nation, and there's that infamous meeting in the end zone on Monday Night Football.
Yeah.
Right. So Rock Nation's trying to get him deals, and he's not doing our stuff anymore. And it's like 6:45, 7 o'clock at night. I'm at the office, and my phone rings. And hey, is this John Celenza? Yeah. This is Marilyn from Mr. Jones's office. Mr. Jones would like to speak to you. Only one Mr. Jones, right?
Yeah.
Jerry Jones gets on the phone. I'm like, you gotta be kidding me, right? He's like, listen, I understand there's some issues with Des right now with his agreement and what have you. I'm a big proponent of my athletes having endorsement deals, but we got to clean this up.
Yeah.
All right, Mr. Jones, you tell me what do you want to do here? He's like, this is what you're going to do. You're going to endorse Sean Lee. Okay. Whatever you pay Sean Lee, I'm going to buy from you in product for my team. And about a year from now, we're gonna get our next offensive star, and he's going to be yours. Okay, Mr. Jones, yeah, I'll take your word for it. So sure enough, we go down to Cowboys camp in Oxnard to shoot Sean Lee. I got this pass. I'm literally walking around with like Nate Newton beside me. Like all his past legends are there. I'm kicking field goals in my socks. Team shooting Sean Lee. Whole experience. Des is there. He knows what's going on, but he's a great guy. He's cool with everything, right? It's all good. And sure enough, next year the draft, right? Zeke walks on stage with that, half shirt on he had on.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, the next day, my phone rang. It was Zeke's agent. He said, so I heard we're doing a deal. And then that's how BioSteel ended up with Zeke. And it was just Jerry keeping his word the entire time. And I'm thinking to myself, like, the control this guy, but like it was wild, right? So he kept his word for years, and I'd always get to go down to Oxnard for the camp. So when I'm watching this thing on Netflix and seeing all this stuff, and it was just, I've got so many stories like that. But the world of pro sports and how it comes together and how word spreads, and you can create a brand for yourself and take that to the masses. That's really what we did with BioSteel. We sold the company in 2019, and now, Cizzle brands, Quench, that's, many years later, my non-competes are gone, and I had a thirst and hunger to get after, and also set a good example for my kids too, right? Show them that you keep pushing forward.
You explained earlier the story of Jerry Jones and Des Bryant and Sean Lee, and then obviously their miraculous short shirt Zeke. Yeah. And that was for BioSteel. So how do you approach that? Obviously, you have an amazing product in Quench. It's growing. It has all the amazing ingredients that you believe people will love and continue to grow into as they understand it. How do you put fuel or jet fuel on the fire that you've created, and especially from an athlete endorsement standpoint?
Yeah. So first on the tracks with Quench was Nathan McKinnon.
Mm-hmm.
So in Canada, Ndamukong, hockey's king. Hockey's everything. It's number one up here, right? So Nate's an interesting one because Andy Bryant, our chief product formulator, Andy's trained Nate since he was a teenager.
Yeah.
So Nate was actually involved in our R&D process.
Okay. Wow.
Trying the products, testing the products, giving his feedback, so on and so forth. And it just so happened that he's the MVP of the NHL. So, I'm big on authenticity.
Mm-hmm.
Done a plethora of endorsement deals over the course of my career. And at the end of the day, that relationship has to be authentic, right? So with Nate, he was a part of it from the very beginning. If you're going to be launching a brand in Canada, I mean, who better to do it with than the NHL's MVP, especially when they're a part of the process. And then from there, we have our different sports that, we know play best in this category. Mm-hmm. And based on previous relationships, it was all natural fit. Like Andrew Wiggins, one of the best basketball players ever to come out of Canada. He's an investor in the business, so he was involved early on. If you're ever going to do business in the province of Quebec, Montreal in particular, you have to be associated with a Montreal Canadian. So we have Cole Caulfield, which is a good fit. Same agent as Nate. We also have the deal with USA Hockey. So Cole is familiar with the products, and being a Canadian. So it's all kind of come apart. No different than you, right? Yeah. It's all kind of come apart organically. And Ndamukong, what I've found is that if you create a best-in-class product, you're going to attract best-in-class people at the end of the day, because I mean, you can endorse anything you want at the end of the day. So could Nate, right? But you're not going to compromise your brand, and you're also not going to compromise your performance.
Yeah, and you're right about that, because it has to be, in the key word that you said there is authenticity. And it's also being, earlier on how you said it's a part of somebody's life, whether it is the kid's life, the mother of those kids. It all has to be kind of cohesive from that perspective. And so with that being the case, how do you go through that process with bringing Nate into the fold, and then him wanting to potentially, I'm assuming, either have reservations, or with him having reservations, he wants to be a part of the process of R&D. How do you work through those processes and really just say, hey, I do want you to be a part of this fold, not only as a leader in the space, but also as part of the business?
Yeah. So it would come. So we'll talk about future endorsements as an example, right? So because we sell so much into pro sports and we work so closely with the dietitians, the trainers, there's always feedback, right? So-and-so really loves your product, right? So-and-so would love to work with you. They've been using it night and day type thing. That's usually how these things come across. And with my experience in the industry, I usually know that agent, right? Or that marketing person at the end of the day. So if it's a part of our plan, if that athlete exists in a sport or a territory that we want to look to take on, we'll reach out, right? That call is usually, it goes strength coach, dietitian, nutritionist says to the athlete, hey, John's going to reach out to your agent on that. Cool, right? Yeah. So I have that initial conversation. Samples are sent out. It's more, they're already using the product, but let's get some different flavors, different things out there. I love the product. From there, I usually fly out, or someone from my marketing team flies out, look them in the eye, see what's going on there, talk to them about the business, different things like that. And if we think it's a fit, then they kind of let go and they turn that negotiation over to the agent. And that's interesting, because for a business at this age and stage, especially with athletes are getting paid right now, like the big word these days is equity, right? Yeah. They're not just looking for cash. So for us, it was a tool that we use, whether it was options or equity, different ways to go about that, as you know. Hey, this is our background, right? This is what we did with the last business, what we sold it for. This is an opportunity for you to get in early on. So, here's what a cash offer could look like with some incentives for MVPs or, leading the league in points or whatever the case may be. And here's what, options in the business could look like. And this is a public company, right? So here's where we're at today. Here's what that could look like if we ever hit this point. And that comes at your point, they vest, let's say over a 3-year period with a cliff, right? Mm-hmm. And it's up to you how long you want to hang on to them or not, and when you want to sell them. So a lot more equity conversations this time around, and I'm also a lot more schooled in what we're doing this time around. So, but that seems to be the name of the game right now, right? And there's some great stories out there, great stories like David Wright, vitamin water, right? That was That was Steve Nash's deal.
Yeah.
So they go to Steve. It was a Canadian sparkly water company or something. Went with $300,000. The vitamin water came with a share offer. Steve takes the $300,000 deal, right?
Yeah.
They give the vitamin water deal to David Wright. David Wright ends up getting hurt, but his equity's there.
Yeah.
Cashed out like $10-20 million.
Yeah. Which is very much so insane to be able to look at all these different pieces. And you talk about Magic had opportunities to have ownership in certain places, and it's just evolution of how these deals get done. So I want to talk a little bit more about what was that negotiation process like with Nathan, and then also just understanding the difficulties of a young company. And cash is king. You need that cash to grow the business.
You need that cash, Ndamukong. You need that cash.
And then you said something very, very key. The company is also public. So there's an opportunity for you to sell shares into the public market to then bring more cash into it. So
absolutely,
you're kind of sitting in a sweet spot to where I do have equity, but I don't want to give too much of it away because I'm diluting myself as a sole or majority owner from that perspective. But also I have the ability to sell shares and bring in more cash. So it's an interesting conundrum that you see, because
it's a fine line with that dilution. It's a fine line, right? So,
and most companies don't have that ability to do that. So let's talk a little bit more about the negotiation process with Nathan, but then also being a publicly traded company in Canada at an early age and how that's beneficial as well.
For sure. So I'll start with the Nate negotiation. So Nate's agent is Pat Brisson.
Okay.
Pat Brisson, legend in the hockey space. Amazing story. He's got story for days. He was Luc Robitaille's childhood friend. Basically moved out to LA when Luc got drafted there, and Luc was his first client. And away he went. And you name a hockey player, Pat's probably his agent. So when I was, I think I was like 21, 22 years old, I interviewed with Pat, and he offered me a job at CAA, and it was the coolest thing in the world. But I didn't take it.
Work for Vino.
I didn't take him up on it because I was too chicken. I was too chicken to move from Toronto to LA. But Pat and I stayed in touch for years.
Yeah.
So the negotiation wasn't a difficult one. Pat's a friend. Nate was involved in the process, and I just said, we've had so much experience in the hockey space, right? Like I've done the NHL deals with Connor McDavid, you name it. So I just said, and Pat, CAA, they're the biggest agent in the game. So I'm not going to negotiate too hard on this one, Pat. Nate's been a part of the process. We're just starting up. He's taken some equity in this, so he's taken a bit of a chance to here's fair market value, and we both knew what fair market value was, and that was that. The go public one, so that's interesting. Okay. Yeah. Now why? People are like, why don't you keep that company private? What are you doing? Why would you go public so fast? All right. So CPG is one of the hardest things in the world to do.
No question.
It is crazy expensive, right? You need all kinds of cash. I don't care what anybody says. If you're going to go make a big brand, try to make a splash, you need money, right? Especially, you can't get a line of, if you don't have 2 years of financials, unless you personally guarantee it, you can't even get a line of credit, right? For me, in my experience, I would never invest in a privately held CPG company. And I know I'm an entrepreneur, and I'm going to crush a lot of entrepreneurs maybe with that comment, but 99.9% of CPG ventures fail. Yep. It's crazy. So when I'm looking at, here I am coming off of a previous venture, so I have some success associated with that. But one of my biggest learnings was, the pressure from shareholders to sell at the end of the day, because they want their liquidity. And how are you going to get that liquidity? It takes forever to, get profitable, start paying a dividend, what have you. So by saying that we were going to take the business public, people are like, hold on here. So I'm in control of when I cash out, right? Yep. So in putting together a raise in a company that was going public, it made it far easier to raise money for the business as well. Now, because people feel they're in control, it's a less of a headache to me as well, because I don't have to worry about, when they want out. That's up to them type. The market will dictate that. Exactly. So, and like you said, you can put equity back in for cash, but as a founder, and I've got to look after people that started this business with me as well, the athletes, whatever. You don't want to dilute too much either. So it's kind of that fine line between how much you want to preserve your equity and how much cash you want to bring on. And you got to protect that cash like crazy, because the sales cycle, the inventory cycle, is you're 6 months out if you're planning effectively, right? So we're cutting PO 6 months out. We're not getting paid for that until 6 months later, right? Most of our payment terms with big box retail, you're looking at 60 days, and then they'll mess you around for a bit and pay you in 90, right? Yeah. So cash is definitely king, but by saying we were going to go public and actually going public, it made it a lot easier. It made it a lot easier for people to, invest their hard-earned money in what we're doing. And thankfully, we were able to provide, a good return here early on and still growing. But that was the go public play in Ndamukong. And when you look at, mergers and acquisitions as well, right? Now I've got two currencies to play with, right? Yeah. So it's like, okay, I can pay for this in shares. I can pay for it in a bit of cash. I can pay for it, in a combination of, and there's so many great brands out there. Like I could show you the best protein cookie in the world. Yeah. No one knows the name of it, where it exists. I can show you that guy who's making that cookie, right? But what does he need? He needs marketing, he needs sales, he needs distribution, right? Mm-hmm. So I can give him shares in our company. Hey, come grow with us type thing. Now he's got, Dr. Pepper Van Hoot is a distributor in Canada. He's got our sales team. He's got our marketing assets, and he can grow with us from within. And I preserve the cash. And he's betting on the upside of his brand coming into our business. So I find it far more flexible. Some people are like, why would you want to be public? That's so hard. You got shareholders all over here. Way easier than being private, in my opinion. And I like the rules. I like all the rules that come with the different exchanges. It keeps your team in check. It keeps your processes in check. And it provides boundaries at the end of the day.
A piece that I'm curious about is understanding you have these different marketing deals with Nathan, Wiggins, and whatnot. How do you determine the return on investment, the ROI for these endorsements, and that they're actually working, and being able to, like Nathan's with Colorado Avalanche, and being able to see, are you in that market in Colorado and in Denver for them to see that return on investment? Or how do you quantify this was a great decision for us to be able to move forward with that endorsement?
Absolutely. So I'll start off by answering that anybody that tells you that they have it down to an exact science is full of
I love it. Yes. And they definitely are.
Yeah, that's the first one, right? So when I look at Nathan wasn't for Colorado, really. He just happens to play for Colorado. Nathan was for Canada. Okay. Nathan was for Canada, right? So at the end of the day, by those conversations with those retailers, right? How many want his displays up in stores, right? What's the velocity when you're running a promotion scheduled around Nate? So for example, we do skate with Nate, right? Okay. So it was an internal contest with certain retailers that we have in the country. It wasn't an external contest, it was internal. So whatever stores sold, salespeople at those stores sold the most quench, they got entered to go skate with Nathan McKinnon out in his hometown in Halifax. Okay. Right? That's cool. So to see that start to get competitive, to see the velocity goes up, that's a great judge of how much Nate's factoring it there. Because that's what they're doing it for, right? They're not doing it because they want a 10% discount on quench as an employee. They're doing it because they really want to skate with Nathan McKinnon. Right. And then from there, so we have the skate with Nate, and then we have the execs of the biggest grocery chains in the country coming out to take that on, right? They want their kids to get the picture and so on and so forth. So when it comes to actually measuring the deliverables, there's all the social media analytics right now with the influencers, right? And they put up a post, how many people clicked that link and bought your product. You can get more exact like that. But when it comes to endorsements as a whole and having, someone like Nate who's really taken on a whole country for you, that's how you can really tell. When you're running promo around their names, how many people are showing up. If Nate attends that meeting with you, what did that open up with the buyers in terms of getting more SKUs into the stores? When you're doing more regional stuff, so, let's say you're going to do a deal with a local hockey team, right? Yeah. So with those deals, you're only allowed to use the team logo within, it's usually around 75 to 100 mile radius of the arena, right? Because they don't want to infringe on the local team spot. So how do we monetize that? Well, that's simple, right? Because what are the sales in that area? And then if we come out with a limited time offer, so that team's logos on your product in your store, right? Yeah. How many of those are we selling, right? So, and then from there, it's, in those deals, you get X amount of social media mentions from the team account, right? Yeah. So it's when they push that out, what did that do online, right? Because we're able to measure that and see where that traffic's coming from. So what did that do online? What are those stores in those regions in that 100-mile radius doing? And what did the LTO do, right? Okay, what was the cost of that deal? Okay, what's our COGS on that product? What were the sales? That's how profitable that specific deal would be for us.
When you're looking at these endorsements, is there a firm list of things that are from an expectation perspective, and then wishful list that you say, hey, I would love to get to this level, but I understand we need to have a framework from here? Because I've always looked at it from when I'm doing endorsements, whether it's T. Rowe Price or any of these different groups that I'm working with, whether it's for my podcast or for me as myself individually, I want to say, hey, this is the bare minimum of what's expected of me. But also, I always find a way to just add more value and bring more value to the table, because I want to be a good partner. I want them to see that I'm authentic about it and I'm pushing it as much as I can within reason with my time and my resources at the same time. So how do you say, hey, this was a great decision because they not only said, hey, they did the bare minimum, but they also exceeded it. And then and it helped us that much more on our return of investment for doing that endorsement.
Back to the earlier part of our conversation, box one is authenticity.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's authentic to them and it's a part of their lives, then they're going to be walking into that game with that product. Right?
Yeah.
So that's step one. So within the framework of a deal, you have X fee. So you got your once a year 180 minute shoot. You got your 60-minute appearance based on the athlete or the celebrity schedule. Right? You have X amount of social media mentions per year on their different accounts. And then from there, what I found is when you add the equity component into it, people are more willing to go above and beyond, especially when you're a pubco, because they see how they can affect the stock price, right? They see how their news can help affect investors that are potentially coming in. So, in my experience, whenever it's authentic, we've always gotten people to go over and above the 180 minutes plus the appearance plus the X amount of tweets. You get all the extra stuff like, Vita the other day, right? Walking into a preseason game with the quench in his hand. We didn't tell him to do that. We didn't tell him to do that. That's not his agreement. No, he just wanted to drink quench and he had it on him and he's walking into the game, right? It's a part of his life. So that's where that authenticity comes in, right?
I'll take some kudos for that one.
Okay, so there was an assist on that.
I think I dropped that one in your lap for you.
Okay, so there was an assist on that one. There you go. Well, that came from you, Ndamukong, because he found out of the brand from you, right?
Yeah.
So he's like, hey, if Suh's into this, I know how he does his due diligence. Holy shit, I should give this a look, right? Yeah, so, and when you have that authenticity, I've always found that, and you're working with good people, they're going to go above and beyond. And when there's that equity component to it, that upside component to them, it's like, well, why wouldn't I? I'm only helping myself and I'm only helping these people that I partnered with. So, but that's why I think authenticity at the end of the day is checkbox number one. I've had relationships that maybe they weren't most authentic, but something had to be done because this distributor demanded that and they got this retailer and holy shit, you need to get this done right now. And it hasn't worked out, right? Because we didn't take the proper steps, right? It was a bit forced. No one flew out there. It was just like, get this done because if that athlete's on this sign, it's XPO. It's XPO coming from that retailer. And so, I think that's how you get the over and above, but I think it all starts with the authenticity. And how they feel part of the upside in the business for sure.
Quenches in Cizzle Brands has been around for about a year right now. Let's just say on the safe side. Right. What are some of the goals for building for the next handful of years, let alone in the next year for reaching success? And is that solely in and around sports, or are you saying it's a combination of sports and individuals to take this brand to the next level?
I think it's individuals that are involved in sport. Right. Or related to sport. I think sport and hydration runs hand in hand. I think it's that kind of cool relationship. You see it between music and sports. You see it between business people and sports, right? It's like the business people want to take hydration tips from the athletes and the athletes want to take business tips from the business people. For sure. Even though the athletes are probably making way more money than the business people. You know what I mean? So it's going to be firmly rooted in sports. It's going to be firmly rooted with authentic and aspirational characters and people that want to carry a better for you message out to the masses Because at the end of the day, we're not going to compromise on the quality of our products, and we're going to keep pushing the right way. So that's how the business is going to be rooted. We have a plan in place, like, behind me, in the room behind me, there's a sales room behind me. There's a map of the US with pins on the wall, and we know where we want to be and where we want to go. And we have our pillars on how we develop a market, right? So do we have, those aspirational assets that appeal to that market, right? Do we have that best-in-class strength coach or people of influence in that market, right? There's another pin. Do we have those grassroots teams, those AAA hockey teams, those, whatever, depending, I'll refer to Minnesota as an example because hockey's rampant there, right? Do we have those grassroots in place for the sports that apply to that area, whether it be soccer, women's softball, girls volleyball, whatever the case may be, right? And that's how you get your buzz. And then once you have that, it's okay, let's bring on a couple big box accounts, right? In that area. Okay, because that's going to create the velocity in those big box stores. And then you got a PR story. And then our version, we call it the Cizzle wheel. It's our version of the flywheel. It starts spinning within that area, right? And that's how we're able to get success in our regions and move on to the next one. Because if you think you're going to take on America all at once, you're crazy, right? At the end of the day.
So obviously this has been an amazing conversation and we spent a lot of time together, but I would love for you to share with the audience in your life and in let alone your very successful career to date, what's the biggest price you've had to pay for a breakthrough?
I can give you 3 on that one. So early on in my career, I prided myself on, you don't sleep, right? We just work, you don't sleep. So I combined a work trip with going to a buddy's wedding out on the West Coast. And I'm on my way home. And I went to the wedding. The wedding was in Vegas, but I didn't drink, nothing like that. I was just pure business mode. That was the end of my trip. And I walked up to go to the bathroom on that plane and I collapsed.
Okay.
I went down. I woke up with people that I don't know, like on top of me, trying to revive me. Apparently I got them all off me and I kept going. And they thought I was going for the pilots.
Oh, wow.
Because that's where I was going. And I dropped again.
Yeah.
And it was a US flight coming back to Canada. Yeah. And then I'm up again. And one of the stewardess, they're like trying to figure out, passengers, so-and-so. I see him on the phone. Yeah. And one of my business cards fell out of my pocket. Yeah. And she was Canadian. She worked for the Calgary Flames. She was a nice girl. And she goes, "Oh, BioSteel. No, I know this brand. No, this guy's legit," type thing, right? And it was like, whoa, okay, he's not crazy type thing. And they called down, they got my name, and I came off that plane, and they had the wheelchair ready, and they wheeled me out, and I'm not allowed to walk, even though I wanted. Yeah. And my wife's there to pick me up, and she's just like, "What did you do? Like, why are these people escorting you out?" So physically, that was probably the biggest toll I had to pay. For my soul, it was selling my business because that was my baby. My business partners and I. So the day we sold that business, I cried like a baby, and I don't know if it was because I knew my family.
It wasn't a cry for joy; it was a cry like of sorrow.
I was so confused that day. I thought I was crying because we worked so damn hard, and I knew my family was going to be, from a financial standpoint, good from that point on. But I really think when I reflect back, I was just crying because I knew it wasn't mine anymore at the end of the day. So that was probably on the soul side. And from a monetary side, it was after we sold our business, we signed the NHL deal. We were the league-wide sponsor. And that was great for the brand in Canada. That got Costco going, and that deal alone, we were able to perform an ROI on, and it was a great deal. Yeah, it was very expensive, but it was a great deal. So that was like the first step in doing a deal of that magnitude. Yeah, and being able to see the return on that. There were other things that definitely didn't pan out that led to the demise of that brand, but that was the first big deal that panned out. It was funny because when we got bought, Constellation Brands was the biggest investor in the company that bought us, right? They injected $5 billion. And when they were really looking to expedite the things in the US, we actually had to look at the NFL deal. Okay. And I got that contract put in front of me. Yeah. And I went down to Cowboys game
Yeah.
Obviously. And I met with, some of the representatives there, great guys. And to have that deal put in front of us and to see the team at Constellation kind of work through that and be like, okay, it's X nugget. And this thing was like $90 to $110 million a year.
Yeah.
But to see how they looked at it, like, okay, through our distribution network, here's how we can monetize that.
Yeah.
Right. And to be dealing with numbers of those magnitude. Now, ultimately, they decided against it, and that was the right call. But just to even be a part of that conversation and to see the, all the math associated in the decision making, I'd say those were probably the, from soul to physical to monetary. Those were the, some of the biggest moves in my life from a business standpoint, for sure.
Well, no, that's amazing. I appreciate it. I've never had the first time asking that question, a 3-pronged approach. And that's pretty impressive to say the least. A lot of learnings and a lot of growth throughout those learnings. But John, this has been amazing, man.
Appreciate you. Thank you. And Ndamukong, thanks for having me. Say hi to the family.
I will. You as well.
All right.
T. Rowe Price proudly sponsors No Free Lunch. The views expressed in this podcast are those of the podcast participants and do not necessarily reflect those of T. Rowe Price. Their sponsorship supports the platform and does not imply endorsement of specific content or perspectives. So, final thoughts. I think it's simple. John did an amazing job of explaining to us what it's like to build a company. But I think more importantly for athletes and entertainers, you need to be authentic to these brands that you are endorsing, and they need to be a part of your everyday life, or you're not being authentic to who you are as an individual. And that will be seen in anything that you do from a social perspective and any other outside of work that you're doing with this company. Don't just take the paychecks. Like, comment, subscribe to No Free Lunch on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts.